Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. As you guys saw by the title, I will be reading my subscribers' spooky stories. So of course, go get comfy, grab your snacks, grab your cobija, and let's get straight into it. Hello Daisy. My name is Jenna. My parents are from Colombia and Peru, and I was born and raised in Melbourne, Australia. My family has always believed in spirits and is very Catholic. I started believing in the existence of the demonic when my family began telling me about their encounters, legends, and terrifying experiences with El Diablo. I continue to pray to God that I never encounter any spirits myself, and so far, I haven't. I hope it stays that way. This story is about two different experiences, one that happened to my cousin's girlfriend and another that happened to my dad. My cousin's girlfriend, Sofia, is Mexican. She grew up in a house full of paranormal activity before moving to Colombia for the university, where she eventually met my cousin. In her bedroom back in Mexico, there was a mirror, and every night she would see a man with a pitch black face, completely devoid of features. He would just stand there, staring at her while she slept. Because of this, Sofia never changed clothes in that room. The man would always stare at anyone who was in that room. One evening, when she was 17, she was doing her makeup. It was sunset outside, the lights were on, and the blinds were down. Suddenly, the lights began to flicker. Then, the faceless man appeared in the mirror. Before she could react, he reached his hand through the mirror. The glass shattered, and he began to strangle her. She couldn't scream, no sound would come out, and the lights kept flickering wildly. In desperation, Sofia grabbed her cross necklace and pointed it toward the spirit. Immediately, the man retreated back into the mirror, and the shattered glass magically reassembled, returning to its original state as if nothing had happened. When her family came home, Sofia told them everything. To her horror, her mother admitted she too had seen that same faceless spirit staring at her through the mirror. After that encounter, Sofia was accepted into a university in Colombia. She moved there, and she hasn't encountered any spirits since. It was there that she met my cousin. When she finally opened up to him about what she'd experienced, he promised to always protect her. He prays over her constantly and reminds her that the name of Jesus is more powerful than anything or anyone. Now, onto my dad's story. My dad grew up in a small village in Bogota, Colombia. He was the middle child with two siblings. In their house, the downstairs bathroom was notorious. Anyone who went in there would hear whispers or see a cloudy, human-like figure. When my aunt, my dad's oldest sister, was 18, she had a terrifying experience. While showering, she suddenly felt like someone was watching her. Through the steam, she swore she could see a dark shape moving. She also owned a hair straightener that moved on its own, even when it was unplugged. Once it flew toward her while it was still hot. After that, she kept it in her bedroom to avoid the bathroom entirely. Years later, when my uncle, my dad's youngest brother, was 17, he brought his first girlfriend over. They went into the bathroom together, and things started to get, well, intimate. While my uncle stepped out to grab 2 towels, his girlfriend suddenly felt like she was being watched. Then, she saw a man dressed in white, his feet facing backward, creeping toward her and reaching out as if to touch her. She screamed in terror. My uncle rushed back with towels and, in a panic, pointed his cross necklace at the spirit. The entity screamed and vanished instantly. Shaken and terrified, they got dressed and decided to go out for dinner instead. Eventually, my uncle got a job at Qatar Airways as a flight attendant. He moved to Qatar with his girlfriend. Today, they're married and live in Melbourne with their young son. They no longer experience any paranormal activity, but they pray constantly, asking God to protect their family from going through something like that again. Whenever I visited my abuela's house, it always felt like something was off, even though I personally never saw or heard anything. After my dad and my cousin shared these stories with me, everything finally made sense. That's my story, Daisy. I'm not afraid of spirits because I know God is protecting me, and I truly believe the name of Jesus is more powerful than anyone or anything. Hi Daisy, my name is Zaylee, and these encounters happened about a month ago. There are 4 of us in my house: my mom, stepdad, my little brother Xander, and me. It all started one night when my parents had some friends over. We were playing cards when the doorbell rang. It was around 10:30 at night, so it was unusual. My stepdad went to check, but no one was there. A few minutes later, it rang again. This time, my mom went to the door. And once again, no one was there. She even waved her hand in front of our Ring camera to test it, and strangely, that's when her phone finally got a motion alert. The doorbell rang a few more times that night before we finally decided to just call it a night. A few days later, my mom was home alone late at night, folding laundry. She started to feel like someone was watching her, so she brought our dog into the room to keep her company. Suddenly, the dog froze, staring at the TV. A moment later, the TV blared on at full volume, even though there were no batteries in the remote. Not long after that, I was laying in bed when my mom came in to tell me my abuelita would be staying over, so I needed to make my bed. Feeling tired, I just rolled over and nodded my head. Now I was facing away from her. I could hear her starting to take the pillows off my bed, when suddenly she stopped and said, "What's this?" Too lazy to turn around, I said, "I don't know, probably Xander's," not knowing what she was holding. She then left the room. When I finished making my bed, I went into the kitchen, where, on the table, I saw a pendant-like charm with a satanic symbol in the middle. Freaked out, I asked, "What is that?" My mom told me she had found it under my pillow, right beside the one I was laying on. We are a religious family, so we were terrified not knowing where it came from. Both my brother and my boyfriend denied putting it there, or even knowing what it was. As we were all in the living room trying to figure out where it came from, the doorbell rang outside. My mom checked her phone, and my stepdad went outside to see. But there was no one there, and this time, there was no notification saying motion had been detected. Finally, my brother snapped and admitted that he had found the pendant outside in the street and thought it would be a funny joke to hide it under my pillow. He got in big trouble, and we disposed of it immediately. Since then, we haven't experienced anything like that in our house again. Hello, Daisy. I used to live with my uncle and aunt in a 4-room house that always felt spooky to me. It had spider webs in every corner, and the whole place felt eerie and very old, like it had been around for generations. At first, I thought maybe it was just my imagination, since I was young. But one day, something happened that proved it wasn't just in my head. A lady moved into one of the rooms with her 2 kids, a 2-year-old girl and a baby boy. One day, she had to go to work but couldn't find a babysitter, So my mom offered to watch the kids until she got home. That same day, the lady also didn't have a ride to work, so my mom left to drop her off. It was only about a 10-minute drive there and back. As soon as my mom left, the little girl started crying, which startled me because I could have sworn she and her baby brother were asleep in the next room with the door open. I went to check on them and told her to come lay down with me. That's when things started to get strange. The little girl began crying harder and seemed terrified of something in the long hallway. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking she was just upset because her mom had left. But then she screamed, clinging to me and trying to climb onto me like she was trying to get away from something. Panicking, I grabbed the baby boy and ran back to my room, locking the door behind me. Once she finally calmed down, I suddenly heard my name being called. I thought, oh, my mom's home. She can finally see what's going on with this little girl. But when I looked out the window, my mom's car wasn't there. Confused, I went to check the garage. Still, no car. That's when the little girl started screaming again, pointing toward the corner of the creepy living room where there was a big window. Through tears, she yelled, "No, no, no!" and started screaming for her mom. "No, no, no! Mujer allí, mujer allí! No, no, no! Woman there, woman there!" I was so startled and panicked that I just grabbed her and ran back to the room, completely frozen for a split second, unable to even move or speak. The next morning, the little girl woke up with bruises on her hands, as if someone or something had been pulling her hard. I told my mom about everything that happened, and that's when she admitted something terrifying. She claimed she used to hear voices in the hallway and by the kitchen, whispering our names. And the creepiest part, my mom and I share the same name, Adela. Hearing our names whispered in the dark was absolutely chilling. Hello, Daisy. These experiences happened at different houses. At the time, we were living in a small apartment with only 2 rooms. One where my mom and my brother slept, and another where my sister and I shared a bed. One night, my sister woke up in the middle of the night, around 2 or 3 a.m. She said she woke up because she heard footsteps and things moving around in our room. When she rolled over to see what was going on, she saw me standing right next to her, just staring at her. Half asleep, she told me, "Go to sleep. It's already late." But I didn't answer. She kept telling me over and over again to go back to bed. But I just stood there, silently, watching her. Feeling frustrated, she finally rolled over toward the wall. And that's when she froze. When she looked toward my side of the bed, she saw me lying there, sound asleep. Her whole body went cold as she realized that whatever had been standing next to her wasn't me. Terrified, she pulled the covers over her head and didn't dare to look back at whatever was watching her. This next story happened to my mom when she was a little girl living in Chihuahua, Mexico. At the time, she was Christian and would go to church regularly with her family. One Sunday, she got upset with her parents and decided not to go to church with them. She stayed home alone instead. While they were gone, she was playing with her dolls in the hallway. The house was completely silent except for the sound of her toys and the occasional car passing by outside. Suddenly, she heard creaky noises behind her. At first, she ignored it, but then she heard it again. When she turned around, she saw something terrifying. A tall white figure wearing a black hood and cloak, holding a scythe. exactly how people describe la muerte, death. My mom froze in shock. She said she went pale and paralyzed, unable to move. Finally, when she snapped out of it, she ran as fast as she could to her aunt's house a few blocks away. When she arrived, her aunt's face went pale with horror. She said my mom's skin was every color imaginable: white, blue, purple, green, yellow. She had never seen anyone so terrified. My mom stayed there until her parents returned from church, too scared to go back home alone. Hi Daisy. To give some context, this story didn't happen to me, but to my dad. It takes place in the same house where I've also had my own experiences. When my dad was younger, his family didn't have much money, so he had to sleep on the couch with his youngest brother, my uncle, while their parents shared a bedroom with the baby. At first, everything in that house seemed completely normal, but that soon changed. One night, while my dad was sleeping on the couch, he started hearing banging noises and what sounded like footsteps. Since the kitchen was right next to the living room, he assumed it was his brother getting up for a late-night snack or drink. The noises continued, so my dad opened his eyes to check, but his brother was still asleep, curled up at his feet. His next thought was that maybe it was his mom or dad. He called out, "Mama? Dad? Can you please be quiet? I'm trying to sleep." There was no answer. The noises didn't stop. Starting to feel uneasy, my dad got up and walked toward the kitchen to take a look. When he got there, he froze. No one was there. Freaking out, he bolted back to the couch and shook his brother awake. While telling his brother what had just happened, something caught his attention in his peripheral vision. Movement near the corner of the room. It was around Christmas time, so the family had their tree set up. What my dad saw next chilled him to the bone. The Christmas tree was floating. It hovered about 4 inches off the ground, high enough that if you walked up to it, you could run your hand underneath it. My dad stared in disbelief, while my uncle, who was only 6 years old at the time, noticed the color drain from his older brother's face. Curious, my uncle looked too and saw it with his own eyes. Trying to prove this wasn't just his imagination, my dad slowly stood up and walked closer to the tree, reaching out to touch it. That's when my uncle saw a white, cloud-like shape dart out from under the tree and rush toward my dad. Before my dad even realized what was happening, the thing went inside him. My uncle panicked and called out, "Dave? Dave?" No response. My dad turned around slowly. My uncle swears that his face was white as a sheet of paper, his expression blank and lifeless. Absolutely terrified, my uncle ran straight into their parents' bedroom and dove into bed with them. My grandma woke up and asked, "What's wrong? Did you have a bad dream again?" But my uncle shook his head and said, "No, Dave scared me, and now I don't want to sleep in there." Thinking my dad was just playing a mean prank, my grandma got up and headed for the living room. But as soon as she left her room, she froze. My dad was standing completely still at the end of the hallway, just staring. "Dave, come here," she said firmly. "It's late, and your dad has work in the morning. Stop playing pranks." My dad began to walk toward her, slowly. When he finally reached her, she grabbed his arm to pull him into the room, and that's when she realized something was horribly wrong. His skin was ice cold, like he'd been standing inside a freezer. In a panic, she yanked him into the bedroom and flipped on the light. His face was ghostly pale. She screamed for her husband, "Bobby, Bobby, wake up! Something is wrong with our son." My grandpa jumped out of bed, and the moment he saw my dad, he began freaking out. "What the hell is wrong with you, boy? Are you sick? Do you need some water?" Wow, my grandpa shook him. My grandma ran to the dresser and grabbed another blanket. They wrapped my dad up, desperately trying to get a reaction out of him. Then, out of nowhere, my dad started coughing and choking violently. After a few terrifying moments, he stopped. He asked, "How did I end up here?" I was just in the living room. From that night on, my grandparents made my dad and uncle sleep on the floor in their room for safety. They never spoke about what happened again, at least not until years later, when my dad was old enough to understand what he had experienced. This was just first of many strange things that happened in that house. I have so many more stories to tell, but those will have to wait for another time. Hello, Daisy. Let me start by saying that I recently came across your YouTube channel. It's comforting to know that I'm not alone in believing that there are spirits in this world, both good and bad. I'm a firm believer that when you mess with things not of this world, you may end up conjuring something that never truly leaves. This story takes place when my mom was diagnosed with cancer. It was only 2 weeks before she passed away. I was the one who brought her home with me, so I could care for her and make sure she was comfortable in her final days. My mom was placed on hospice, which was incredibly difficult, not because of caring for her, but because you slowly watch someone you love fade away right in front of your eyes. The hospice caregivers would come during the day to check on her, and I was responsible for giving her medication around the clock, day and night. One particular night, my mom was having trouble staying asleep. The hospice team had advised me to give her one of her sleep aids. As she drifted off, I noticed her mumbling and talking in her sleep, though I couldn't quite make out the words. A few days before she passed, she woke up and said something that gave me chills. She asked me, "When did you bring all the lights? There are so many bright lights in the room, and one big light in the corner." She told me it was so beautiful, but then said, "Can you turn it off tonight so I can sleep?" Deep down, I knew exactly what she was seeing. Spirits. I had felt their presence in my home before. Still, I reassured her, telling her I would turn it off so she could rest peacefully. Fast forward a few days later, my mom passed away at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I immediately called my brothers and sisters to come say their goodbyes. I felt two different emotions at once: relief that she was no longer in pain, and heartbreak from losing her. As my family gathered around her, I was overwhelmed and had to step outside for some air. This is where things got strange. I live on a corner lot, so my fence is only in the back. By the side of the house, there is a gate that leads to the backyard. When I stepped outside, I saw a huge black bird, like a raven, perched on the fence of the gate. It let out the loudest, most piercing squawk I'd ever heard and flapped its wings violently. What really unsettled me was that no one else seemed to notice it. My family members walked past that same area repeatedly, and none of them reacted or even looked its way. It was as if they couldn't see it at all. The bird stayed there, squawking and flapping, until my mom was taken away to the morgue. After my mom was buried, I asked my brothers and sisters about the bird. I said, "Did you guys see that big black bird on the fence? It was so loud." They all looked at me, confused, and said they hadn't seen or heard anything. That's when I remember an old saying, that ravens carry souls to heaven. I had heard it before, but never truly believed it until that moment. Even after my mom passed, I felt her presence lingering in my house. She loved my son dearly, and I believe she stayed around for him in those early days. One night, I saw something that confirmed this for me. My son had kicked his blankets off while he was sleeping. Suddenly, I saw someone gently pull the blankets back over him. There was no one else in the room. I knew it was my mom, still watching over him, making sure he was safe and warm. That's my story, Daisy. Thank you for letting me share such a deeply personal experience. I hope it brings comfort to anyone who has ever wondered if their loved ones are still near, because I truly believe they are. So that was it for today's stories. That last story definitely was difficult to read. First of all, my condolences, and second of all, thank you to just opening up. I know many of you guys open up. You're recounting these stories, opening up wounds, and I know that it's very difficult. So I really appreciate you guys sending in and every story, especially these stories where it's talking about death, hurt, grief. I know they're difficult. But I also know that one person here could be listening to the story and will resonate, will also find it comforting to hear. Even though it's not spooky per se, I still like to, add these in because it's something that we all go through, grief. And if it can make someone feel a little bit better, why not? So thank you guys for always sending in your guys' stories, opening up. I appreciate you guys so much. If you have a story that you would like to share, please send it in at daicyspooks@gmail.com. I hope you guys are all doing well and amazing, and I hope to see you guys all in my next one. Bye.